You know that specific feeling. It usually happens around 10 a.m. or maybe 2 p.m. You are sitting in front of a screen. There is a task in front of you, an email to write, a project to start, or even a simple phone call to make. You know exactly what you need to do. You have the time to do it. You even want to do it because you want the relief of having it done. But you aren't doing it. You are staring. Your hand is hovering over the mouse, or you're scrolling through a tab you've already checked 5 times. Physically, you are still, but internally there is a riot going on. There is a screaming voice telling you to just move, but your body feels like it's encased in concrete. You aren't relaxing. This isn't leisure. You are suffering. And if someone walked in right now, they would look at you and say, "Wow, you're being lazy." But I want to tell you something that might change your entire life. You are not being lazy. You are in a survival state. You are frozen. The world has a very limited vocabulary for inaction. If you aren't moving, society says you must lack discipline. If you aren't producing, the world says you don't care enough. But I see what's actually happening. You care too much. The reason you can't start is not because your engine is broken. It's because your emergency brake is pulled all the way up. You are pressing the gas pedal to the floor. That's the anxiety, the willpower, the self-shame. But your nervous system has locked the wheels. Today, we are going to look at the neuroscience of the freeze. We are going to dismantle the word lazy and replace it with the correct physiological terms: dorsal vagal shutdown and sympathetic freeze. We are going to prove that your inability to start is actually a sign of a high-functioning, protective nervous system that is just doing its job a little too well. Let's isolate the behavior first. I want you to think about the last time you couldn't start. Notice the physical sensation. Was it peaceful? Laziness is peaceful. Laziness is a choice to prioritize rest over work. It feels heavy, maybe, but soft. What you experience is different. It is a vibrating stillness. It is the wired statue. You might feel a tightness in your chest, a shallow breath pattern, or a buzzing in your limbs, yet you cannot initiate action. This is what clinicians call a mixed state. You are essentially redlining your car's engine while in neutral. The behavior looks like procrastination, but the internal experience is exhaustion. You finish these days of doing nothing feeling more tired than if you had run a marathon. That creates a confusion gap. You ask yourself, how can I be this exhausted when I haven't done anything? The answer is, because you are fighting a biological war inside your own nervous system for 8 straight hours. To understand this, we have to look at polyvagal theory. The world tells you stress is just fight or flight. That's the sympathetic nervous system, mobilization, adrenaline, movement. That's what helps you run from a tiger or finish a deadline at the last minute. But there is a third state, one that is older and deeper in our evolutionary history: the dorsal vagal state. This is the shutdown system. This is what a reptile does when it's caught by a predator. It plays dead. It lowers the heart rate, numbs the body, and disconnects the brain from the present moment to reduce pain. When you look at that Excel spreadsheet and you feel that sudden heaviness, that fog, that urge to just curl up, that isn't a character flaw. That is your dorsal vagal complex engaging. Your brain has tagged that task not just as annoying, but as a threat. And because it feels the threat is too big to fight or flee from, it pulls the emergency brake. It chooses immobilization to keep you safe. Now, why would your brain view an email as a tiger? This is where the advantage comes in. If you are prone to this freeze response, it usually means you have a highly sensitive neuroception. That's your nervous system's subconscious radar for danger. You aren't freezing because you're weak. You're freezing because you perceive the stakes as incredibly high. Maybe that email represents a risk of rejection. Maybe that project represents a risk of failure. Your body is prioritizing your emotional survival. In a primitive context, this mechanism saved your ancestors. If a predator is too fast to outrun, the one who freezes survives. The one who keeps moving gets eaten. Your biology is actually successfully executing a survival program. The problem isn't you. The problem is that your ancient hardware is misinterpreting modern software. You are a survival machine in an office chair. But wait, we have to go deeper. Because some of you are saying, Tom, I'm not scared of an email. That sounds ridiculous. You might not feel scared in the traditional sense. You might just feel bored or annoyed. But let's look at what's underneath the boredom. Research on procrastination consistently points to one driver: fear of failure. But it's not just fear of failing the task, it's fear of the emotion that comes with failing. This is known as affective forecasting. You aren't avoiding the work, you are avoiding the predicted feeling of shame, confusion, or inadequacy that doing the work might trigger. Here is the behavior pattern. You think about the task. Your brain simulates doing it. In that simulation, you encounter a difficult part, a sentence you can't write, a number that doesn't add up. Your brain predicts a microdose of shame. To avoid that shame, you immediately pivot. You pick up your phone. You clean the kitchen. This is what we call mood repair. You are using procrastination to regulate your mood. But here is the catch. Delaying the task increases the pressure. Increased pressure makes the task feel more dangerous. A more dangerous task triggers a stronger dorsal vagal shutdown. So, the longer you wait, the more physically impossible it becomes to start. You aren't just fighting the work anymore. You are fighting a terrified nervous system that is screaming, "Don't go back there, it hurts." Neurobiologically, this is an amygdala hijack. Your amygdala, the threat detection center, disconnects from your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic, planning, and willpower. When you are in a freeze state, MRI scans show lowered activity in the executive centers of the brain. This is why "just try harder" is scientifically invalid advice. You cannot use the prefrontal cortex to override the amygdala when the amygdala has already cut the power cord. It's like trying to run a complex software program on a computer that has been unplugged. You don't need more willpower. You need to plug the computer back in. You need to move from threat to safety before your cognitive brain can even come back online. And here is the hidden advantage of this paralyzing fear. It usually only happens to people who have high standards. If you didn't care about the quality of your work, you wouldn't freeze. You would just do a bad job and move on. The freeze is a side effect of your ambition. It is a side effect of your desire for excellence. Your brain equates subpar work with social death, which creates the freeze. While this is painful, it proves something vital about you. You are wired for quality. You are wired for depth. The world is full of people who churn out mediocrity without a second thought. You are not one of them. You are stuck because you are trying to reach a standard that matters to you. We just need to lower the stakes so you can actually move. Now, I want to talk to the high-functioning freezers. The ones who say, "But Tom, I'm not collapsed on the couch. I'm sitting bolt upright. My heart is racing. I'm clicking between tabs at lightning speed. But I'm not doing the one thing that matters." This is what polyvagal clinicians call sympathetic freeze. It is a mixed state. Imagine you are in a car. You slam your foot on the gas, that's your sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight. At the exact same time, you slam your foot on the brake, that's your dorsal vagal system, immobilization. The engine screams, the car shakes violently, but it does not move an inch. This is the most exhausting state a human being can be in. It burns massive amounts of glucose and energy, leaving you depleted, yet you have no output to show for it. Society calls this burnout or executive dysfunction. You might label yourself as broken or washed up. You think, I used to be able to work 12 hours a day. What happened? What happened is that you ran that engine with the brake on for too long. The sympathetic freeze is your body's way of saying, we are expending maximum energy to stay still because moving forward feels fatal. This often happens to people who have pushed through trauma or chronic stress for years. Your body learned that mobilization was dangerous, but stillness was also dangerous. So it chose this high-tension limbo. It's not a loss of capability. It's a physiological deadlock. Science backs this up. When the autonomic nervous system is flooded with too much sensory input or too much pressure, it exceeds its window of tolerance. When you push past this window, you don't just get more stressed, you flip into a dysregulated state. The dorsal vagal complex activates to dampen the overwhelming input. It causes sensory gating issues. Suddenly, the lights seem too bright, the email font looks weird, the background noise is unbearable. You aren't just procrastinating a task, you are experiencing a sensory and cognitive brownout. Your processing speed drops, your working memory glitched. You literally cannot think your way out of this because the thinking hardware is offline. But look at the flip side. If you are capable of sympathetic freeze, that gas and brake intensity, it means you possess an incredibly high output engine. People with low energy don't get into this state. They just nap. You have a massive capacity for drive, focus, and intensity. The only reason it's backfiring is because of the brake. You don't need to build a bigger engine. You don't need more motivation videos. You already have too much motivation. That's the gas. You need to learn how to release the brake. Once you learn to signal safety to your nervous system, all that pent-up energy, all that shaking tension, transforms into flow. You are a high-performance vehicle waiting for the parking brake to be released. So, how do we release the brake? Here is where most people fail. They try to use logic. They sit there and tell themselves, come on, just do it. It will only take 20 minutes. Don't be an idiot. They try to bully their nervous system into submission. I want you to stop doing that immediately. Your brainstem, which controls the freeze response, does not speak English. It does not understand logic. It only understands physiological safety. Talking to a freeze response is like trying to negotiate with a fire alarm. You can't argue it off. You have to clear the smoke. The clinical term for the solution is titration. In chemistry, titration is adding a reactive agent drop by drop to avoid an explosion. In trauma therapy, it means approaching the threat in tiny, manageable microdoses. When you are frozen, do not try to do the project. That is too big. Your nervous system sees that as a T-Rex. You need to make the task so small it doesn't trigger the threat response. I mean laughably small. Open the laptop. That's it. Then stop. Regulate. Open the document. Stop. Regulate. Write one sentence. By breaking the mobilization into microscopic steps, you fly under the radar of your amygdala. You are tricking your threat detection system into realizing, oh, nothing bad happened when I opened the laptop. Maybe we are safe. Alongside titration, you need glimmers. This is a concept from Deb Dana, a prominent polyvagal clinician. Triggers activate danger. Glimmers activate safety. When you feel the freeze coming on, you need to manually stimulate your ventral vagal system. This isn't about thinking positive. It is about sensory intervention. Change the temperature. Hold an ice cube or a warm mug. Change the lighting. Put on music that you associate with safety. Hum a tune. Humming stimulates the vagus nerve directly. Move your body in a rhythmic way. These physical actions send a bottom-up signal from your body to your brain saying, we are safe, we can move. You have to treat your body like a frightened animal that needs soothing, not a machine that needs kicking. When you start viewing your procrastination as a freeze response, everything changes. The shame dissolves. You stop hating yourself for being lazy and start getting curious about what your body is afraid of. You stop asking, "What is wrong with me?" and start asking, "What does my nervous system need right now to feel safe enough to move?" This shift is not just semantics. It is the key to unlocking your potential. Because the truth is, you are not a procrastinator. You are a person with a highly reactive survival system. You are a person who cares deeply about outcomes. You are a person with a powerful engine that is just waiting for the right conditions to run. So the next time you find yourself staring at that blank screen, unable to move, I want you to take a breath. Don't force the gas pedal. Don't scream at yourself. Just acknowledge the freeze. Say, "I see you. I know you're trying to protect me." Step away. Do something sensory. Regulate. And then come back and do the smallest possible thing. You are not broken. You are not lazy. You are simply a complex biological system navigating a world of threats. And now that you know how to find the brake release, you are going to be unstoppable. Welcome to the tribe of the deeply wired.